I'm life and confidence coach Diana Leader, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hey DIY ass kickers! This is the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast with guest Kelly Myerson. Kelly is the author of Chapter 11 in Volume 4 of the Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing series titled Sacred Sleep, Cultivate the Best Sleep of Your Life. She is also a co-author in my next collaborative book, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life Too. Kelly is a poet, an author, a speaker, and a coach who will cultivate space for you to emerge from stress and overwhelm to lead and savor the life of your dreams. A sensory-trained occupational therapist and holistic entrepreneur, she brings a wealth of experience and fun science to inspire her clients. Plus, she'll get you the best night of sleep ever. Let's get talking to Kelly. Hey, Kelly, welcome.
Hello, thank you so very much. And of course, congratulations. These book babies coming out are just so exciting to celebrate. I feel like all of these are the arrival of somebody's child, and we all love to rally around them. So congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you very much. We'll be celebrating together in August on the next one. Yeah, it is a rallying around, isn't it? It's awesome. It's the kind of support that is just heartwarming. Yeah, it's really great. So yeah, so awesome that you're here. Dying to hear you talk about your how to get people a really good night's sleep, of course. But why don't we start with, because the show is about emotional hits and how you got through them. Why don't we start there?
Absolutely. So I've had definitely a few in my adulthood, but none more challenging than being a mom and a new mom. I found those first few months, trying to figure out breastfeeding and sleeping schedules. And I started to have just this tremendous amount of anxiety around routine things, specifically going to bed at night. So it would start to get dark outside and I would start to panic and feel like, oh my gosh, is it going to be another rough night? Is he not going to go down to sleep? Am I not going to get to sleep? How many times is he going to wake me up? I'm sure there are so many moms out there that can relate to that. And so it took a while. And what I really learned is that the more I created routine in my life, and the more I started to clear my spaces and make them sacred and enjoyable, the less stress I felt. So some of the anxiety I was feeling was reflected in the mess in my spaces. And some of the mess in my spaces was creating some of the chaos that I felt in my mind.
Wow, what a great connection to make. I don't know that most people would go there, but I think when we start to allow ourselves, sort of feels like for me anyway, when I allow myself to be aware that my environment is really important to how I feel, makes such a big difference. Yeah. Great connection.
Yeah. So I found, over time, it got a little bit easier. And certainly when it's lighter outside and we have more light during the day, I realized how important that was to be in the light and be outside. And, I really kind of came through it, but there was definitely a period in early motherhood for me where it was white knuckling just to get through. And I sort of look back and I want to cheer myself on and be like, oh, just let yourself enjoy it a little bit more. It's going to be okay. But it can be scary for new moms.
Incredibly scary. I think, and even if your baby daddy is in, or your partner is in the picture with you, you're still very alone as the mother You're still very alone at night, like someone else can go to sleep much easier than we can as moms. Yeah, yeah, that's a really big one. I also really liked what you said about the light. Being able to enjoy the light and using that. It sounds like using that as a way to feed yourself and to nourish yourself. And that for me is about knowing. Again, it's awareness, I suppose, but knowing that that is something that you need to support you, and then going and getting it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's sort of like emerging from the cocoon. And like it's okay to be outside with a newborn. You can go outside, you can get fresh air, you can feel the sunshine on your face. Um, it's so good for your mental state.
Yeah, yeah. Did you notice any difference in your baby when you started taking him outside? I'm just curious.
I will say that I noticed very early on that my state of being and my nervousness definitely was received and reciprocated from my son. So if I approached him in a stressed state, we just both stayed stressed. But if I could find the calm within myself to approach him, then there was a chance that I could help him calm. But the calm had to be within me. I couldn't come at him with the same amount of stress and expect him to find his calm.
How old is he now?
He's going to be 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that ever goes away as a parent. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You always kind of have to be the grounded one and then approach. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I for sure work very hard at that. So, they still have those very high, strong emotions now with a lot of language attached to it. But he's still my cuddle bug. I mean, he craves time with me, especially touch time, snuggling and hugging, because I really do think that it helps him regulate his own self and emotions. And it's that being in that safe place to land when we're feeling emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah, which is beautiful. I mean, that's the mother-child relationship at its best, I think. Yeah.
Yes,
So awesome.
it totally is.
Yeah. So how did you calm yourself then? Maybe you can tell us more about that.
Well, I started to do some breathing. That was where I started. I realized that I spent like months breathing from like the top half of my lungs.
Well, maybe
And
because the bottom half of your body probably hurt for a while. I don't
for a
know.
while, sure. But being in this like high stress anxiety state, and spoiler alert, I'm an occupational therapist who specializes in sensory integrative therapies. So I work with children on self-regulation. So I kind of realized at a certain point that maybe I needed to apply some of what I did with the children I worked with to myself and figure out how to get myself out of my head and into my body and breathing and learning how to relax. So I did everything from listening to guided meditation to breathing to essential oils. I had this experience with lavender, and I had only just started to dabble in essential oils, and my friend sent me a lavender roller. She said, try this with your fussy baby. And I was like, I'm too nervous. What if I put it on him? What if he reacts? So I put it on me and I calmed down, and he calmed down and went down for a nap. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
so I can hack my senses. And even though in my mind I'm going, I can affect my body from the brainstem up versus trying to cognitively think myself to the place of calm.
Yeah. How would you even do that? Think yourself to a place of calm. Like, if you ever get a recipe for that, you need to sell it in bottles, because I'm not sure that it works.
Yeah, it doesn't. And what the research shows when I've worked with children, because this will happen in school a lot, that the teachers will want the children to just sit still and be quiet and calm. And they'll tell them and expect a response. So I find I become the person who sort of translates for the child they don't have that capacity, or if they do, they're going to use their cognition to reinforce sit still, be quiet, and they're not available to learn. So if we can give them activities that help their body calm to be prepared to sit and then prepared to receive information and to learn, then that's going to be much better than them feeling continuously like they can't sit still and be quiet, because their bodies are craving movement because they move and they learn, right?
Mm-hmm. And what I can envision from that is, kids who either fall back in school or get labeled as the naughty kid, or, the one that can't behave, or the busy kid, or whatever it is. And, talking about find your voice, save your life. Well, yeah, there goes your voice when you have a label. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
awesome.
gosh. All the D's, the ADHD, the ADD, the autistic spectrum disorder kids, so I've found myself in the position of being able to explain to people, this is how their nervous system is working.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't tell them to just not to override that. We have to help them. And we also have to recreate the structure, the space, the expectation to allow them to be successful and to develop their independence in managing themselves throughout the day. We can't just shame them to feeling like they have no other choice but to behave. Yeah. So I've been championing those kiddos because I really feel for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank goodness that they have you out there doing that, because I think there are a lot of kids that get missed because of that, just from not being able to calm. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what other things did you do for yourself to calm?
Well, I discovered this thing called self-compassion.
Oh, that thing. Oh,
and
yeah.
Self-care. And I'm not even sure exactly when it sort of struck me upside the head, but that if I could learn to take care of myself and put myself before everyone else, put that oxygen mask on, and really, take tender, loving care of myself. Everything from scheduling my own doctor's appointments, not just my child's doctor's appointments, but asking for a break, asking for help, saying, I'm going to go take an hour and take a shower or sit in the bathtub and just be alone and find things that I enjoy. And so as I started to do that, I feel like, that analogy of the cocoon, I started to come out again and feel like myself again. And the self-compassion piece is huge. And it's sometimes quite surprising to me that, I'm in a profession where we care so deeply about the children and the families, but turning my own compassion on myself was like learning to walk as a baby, like figuring out what are the tiny steps I have to take to accept this as a good thing,
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been a challenge for sure. I don't think that as women we have a lot of self-compassion. I don't think that we allow ourselves that. We're so busy, helping other people and being compassionate with other people and supporting them, that we don't do that for ourselves. So it's not a habit. I think we have to relearn how to do that as grown-ups.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about self-compassion and self-care always takes me to that place that I hear about all kinds of times, with the women around me, and my clients, my family, my friends. I mean, we're kind of all experiencing the same thing, that many of us think that self-care and is painting our nails, or only, all I need to do is go get a pedi and I'm fine, and I always encourage women to go deeper than that, to really think about what feeds us, and again, that's taking a different, it's taking a different look at what those things may be, and how to reach that point where you are feeling as though you're being nourished, as opposed to everything just spilling out all the time. I mean, yeah, it's fun to go get a mani pedi. I love it. or pre-COVID I did, but but to be able to go a little deeper, I think is so important.
Yeah, nourishing yourself. I love that word nourish because I think it takes it even a step further, right?
Yeah.
So we understand inherently that we need to nourish ourselves in terms of food and water and vitamins and exercise and sleep and all these things. It's also, how are we nourishing our minds? What are we feeding our heads, right? Are we reading positive content? Are we listening to positive podcasts like yours? Are we listening to books on Audible? Are we finding those things that feed our soul and our mind and make us feel good and connected? Are we appreciating beauty in the world? Are we getting outside into nature and feeling part of a whole? Those are all elements of self-care. Choosing, you know what, I'm not going to tune on to the news because it's negative and it doesn't make me feel good.
Right.
I'm gonna enjoy a meaningful meal with my family, and I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna savor my meal and not feel like I have to jump to the next task to take care of the house. So all of those pieces are so important.
Yeah, yeah, they really are. They really are. And that, I think that whole package is what we need to be aware of, and to keep working toward making sure that we are nourished in all those areas. I think sometimes we'll do that whole, January 1st thing where we head to the gym and that's all we do, and everything else falls apart, and then you kind of think, I can't do this. And I'm not a fan of the term balance, because I don't think we're ever really balanced. But and I think we judge ourselves if we're not balanced. So, but I am a fan of kind of being whole. Thinking of ourselves as being whole. Yeah, and yeah, your brain is such a big part of it. What are you listening to, as you said? What are you reading? What are you watching? All that stuff is really huge. And I think that also, if I may, I think that has a really great impact on our children.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, being able to express the need to care for yourself, to say to my son, okay, mom is going to do her morning routine. She's going to meditate for a few minutes, and then we can play together. And so he sees me engaging in these self-care behaviors and understanding that that's something that he can do for himself. And I think especially for our young girls, it's so important. I had so many models of women who were more like martyrs, like throw themselves down, give so much of themselves to everybody else, to their work, to their family, to their friends, and have nothing left at the end of the day, which is the recipe for burnout, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I tried to model that in my life, and it just went really poorly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because it's not sustainable, right? It isn't. It wasn't for me. It's not for many women. And I find, I'm a little older than you, and I find that, within my age range, with with other women who are grandmothers like I am, that it's almost a second opportunity to remember that you have to take care of yourself. You don't have the demands you had when your children were little. You have that space after where you're kind of free as a bird, and then along come the babies that are just so enticing, right? You have to kind of remember again, and then kind of model yourself for them as well. So I don't think it ever really goes away. We may be doing something else for someone else, but we can't do it without doing it for ourselves.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. And I see this as such a great time. For many people, entering into quarantine last year in March was a really hard thing. And for those of us who have thrived through it, we have used this as an opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, our families, to really get to the heart of what is most important to us in our lives. And there's really no time like now to approach that and to check into what is working for me and what is not. And if this has been the social construct and I don't really feel like it's worked for me, then I don't need to exist in that social construct anymore. I can create my own that works for me and works for my family and honors myself first and foremost.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite lines too, is what works for you and what doesn't work for you, you know? Get to know that, you know, that's part of the awareness. And I think, and that's part of this podcast. The reason for this podcast is to make sure that we have the chance to share things that women will connect with about relying on themselves, you know, the power of who they are and what they know about themselves and how they then can express it in whatever way they're going to express it and keep themselves healthy and standing up standing up and speaking up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's that's great. Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right. So tell us a little bit how you would advise a grown up about sleeping. Now, is all your work isn't with moms, is it, or is it? Yeah.
I'm happy to help anybody who's struggling with sleeping for sure. And, you know, for the past couple decades, I've had so many opportunities to work with families with children who are really suffering in terms of their sleep. And when children aren't sleeping, typically the parents weren't.
Yeah.
But I was never able to work with families per se because, you know, I'm working in the schools and so I'm focused on the kids. But I can relate, of course, to the motherhood piece and particularly to working moms who are trying to balance so many things. So what working moms will often do is work to exhaustion and give up their sleep so that they can get more accomplished, or they're so starved for time with themselves, they will delay their bedtime just to get a moment to breathe and be by themselves. So, one of the first things I love to help people do is to consider their bedroom environment and how they can make that space more sacred. So, it's not going to feel so sacred if you have unfinished baskets of laundry and your receipts and your change all over your dresser. And I can speak to this because I was that woman with like disaster zone. I mean, like a collection of glasses on my nightstand, not just the one from that night, like a bunch. And, you know, my time capsule across my dresser of everything that I wore and all my change and receipts, everything, everywhere I went that week. So that's my first check-in with people. What is your bedroom environment look like? And how does it feel for you? Is it comfortable? Do you love having a lot of clutter around you and tchotchkes? I mean, I'm obviously can see you can see behind me, Diana. I love my little tchotchkes and stuff, but my bedroom is very sparse because we've always talked about how much we love to go to hotels, right? And that feeling of walking into a hotel room, it smells clean. There's fresh sheets on the beds are made, everything is perfectly in its place and just ready for you to enjoy. So I love to have that feeling in my own bedroom every day. And so over the course of a number of years, I pared back what I had in there. I did some serious decluttering. I'm a huge fan of Marie Kondo and her method of organizing and getting rid of things. And I started to really honor my bedroom as a sacred space for myself.
Wow. Wow. Awesome. I love that. It's and I love that, I think, because that's what I do, but it wasn't so much intentional as just, well, I suppose it was intentional. It was a feeling, you know. So I yes, I like my room to be very tidy. I'm not a clothes on the floor person, or, you know, leave stuff on the dresser. I don't do that. My bed has to be made every day. There's a sense of, it feels good when I get up in the morning to make my bed and to make it look really nice. Yeah, I like to do design on the side too, so it's, you know, my artwork has to match and all that fun stuff. So yeah, and it feels way better. I think if I were going to bed in a cluttered room, it would feel really uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It did it for years. It does. And it's not even just the visible clutter, it's the unfinished pieces of things. So a closet full of clothes, some of which you wear and love and some you don't. It's the drawers that are stuffed and overflowing, even if you can't see them when you close it. It's, all of those little things, the junk drawers, the dust bunnies under your bed. And so you can change the complete energy of the room by addressing all of those pieces of things, not just the things that are visible to you. But I like to have people do that in the spirit of fun. So if someone is like I was, where I was just so lost in the chaos of my bedroom, everything was disorganized, nothing had any kind of order. And so to get started felt so overwhelming. I actually listened to a hypnosis on tape to convince me that I loved to declutter and organize my house. And I've done a really good job, so I think it may have been effective. And I know I did all of the things that I could do. I had friends come over and help me. I mean, I like phoned in every potential thing that could help me. Um, but the greatest way I found to start was to set a timer for 10 minutes, to intend to do one small space. So let's say you had a messy little mail center where your mail drops when you get it from outside. And while you're doing that, you're gonna bring in all the senses. So you're gonna light a candle, some incense, or put on an essential oil and a diffuser. You're gonna put on your favorite music. You're gonna grab yourself a nice warm cup of coffee or tea or a glass of wine if you prefer. And you're going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And during those 10 minutes, you're going to declutter. So anything that needs to be recycled or shredded or thrown out or filed, you're going to do it. And you're going to recreate that space for 10 minutes. Now, if you hit the end of 10 minutes and it's not done, that's okay. If you feel like you just have a few more minutes, finish it. If you don't, you're going to walk away and go do something that lights you up inside. It makes you feel so good. Because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to pair these great feelings with the act of decluttering and reorganizing, so that you're actually changing your reticular activating system, which is at the base of your brain, to see mess as opportunity and exciting and fun, which is kind of where I'm at right now. So when I see a space that's a mess and it's kind of fallen to pieces, like the playroom, for example, which I'm sure many moms can relate to, I'm like, ooh, I get to reorganize this again. How am I going to do it this time? And it is fun. And I don't have to light a candle, and I don't have to put on essential oils, and I don't have to put on music. I can just get to it because I've found the joy in that activity.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Because I think, and obviously you've gone through a process to get there. I would imagine that a lot of women initially would say, well, that's not joyful, but I love how we can actually train ourselves to connect to the joy that's there. Personally, I love to see a drawer that's completely tidy and to know where things are, but that was not always the case for me. So yeah, I love that, but yeah, I really like how you can train yourself to be finding that joy. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think you can get stuck in that negative place. So your emotional center of your brain is like really active. But if you can trick that part of your brain to be like, look how fun this is. I'm having coffee. I'm listening to my favorite music. This is great. I'm dancing. I'm enjoying this. We can put our brain to work for us. And so that's what I love to do. That, like, pair that part of your brain that loves to also get into that, like telling you all the things that you've done wrong your whole life, and that spin that we get into. Well, put it to work for you. What do you want it to say instead? Practice that. And I think part of that is bringing in all your senses, because you get down into your body and you get out of your head.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Very awesome. Very awesome. So keep going. Tell us a little bit more about
So
that.
the environment is that first piece that I really tackle with people. And I look at three circles of the pie. So we've got your environment, we've got your habits, and we've got your mindset. And most of the time, somebody is struggling in one or more of those areas. And if we can get a nice overlap between those three, you're going to have your best sleep ever. So the busy brains, I have people who I lay down in bed at night. I'm going to bed at a good time. I'm not staying up too late. I put my phone away. I lay down in bed, and either the anxious feelings and things start to go, or I have the creative people who haven't stopped moving all day, and they finally stop moving and they start to get all these really great ideas. So for those busy brain people, I recommend that 30 minutes before bed, you're going to sit down and you're going to mind dump. So you're going to sit in a very quiet place. And I like to do this away from the bed, because you want to pair your bed with rest and sleep. You don't want to pair it with thinking. So if you have a nice couch somewhere, you could put on some quiet music. You could bring in other senses with essential oils or a candle or something very ritualistic, so you feel into that moment. Grab a notebook and a pen and just write what's on your mind. And you could even start with, I'm thinking about, and just see what comes out. It doesn't have to be organized. You know, I love doing mind dumping and time blocking, where, you know, all the things you need to do, and then you kind of prioritize and get them onto a spreadsheet. But this is more about just getting everything out that's on your mind before you get into your bed. And when people first start doing this, I recommend that you leave that notebook next to your bed, because your brain's going to be like, oh, wait, and another thing. Oh, and another thing. You know, and this could be your to-do list, your grocery shopping list. It could be something that's on your mind that you're upset about, and it could be creative projects. And the other piece of that, at the front end of your day, I highly recommend, in some sort of a morning routine, you're sitting in some type of stillness, whether that for you is meditation or it's just quiet by yourself, preferably before you've scrolled on social media, before you've watched anything on TV, before you've even talked to anybody. Just sit in that quiet with yourself and be open and receptive. That's when I'm personally most creative. I do most of my writing in the morning after I've done some quiet and meditation. And it's before I've done anything else in my day, aside from making the coffee.
Oh, priorities, come on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And I mean, both pieces, the, you know, meditation in the morning, I think is so important. And you know, I do it. I just get up out of bed and brush my teeth, and then I go back to bed and sit up. So because I always find it's cold in the morning, so I want to get back under the covers. But I sit up, and yeah, I do my meditation there, and yeah, it feels really good. It's a really great. You're right. It's such a great way to start the day. Yeah, absolutely. And the, you know, the brain dump. Uh, wow, perfect. And I love that. I love that term, because it really is, you know, I mean, that, as you described, it's just getting rid of everything that's going to be keeping you awake and keeping your head going. And you know, I certainly have experienced my share of that at different points in my life, where you know, you're either waking up in the night thinking about all the things you need to do, or there is that, as you said, that, you know, that anxious feeling about, oh my, what if, what if, and that could happen. You know, that whole, you know, that whole piece that anxiety will do to us and get us thinking about worst case scenarios, and in the middle of the night, that can feel very, very real. So yeah, that brain dump, I think, is really good. I'm gonna try that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely try that.
yeah.
And then the other piece of it is your habits, right? So if you're drinking coffee all through the day, you're going to feel a little more jittery and have more trouble sleeping for the most part. Caffeine is a tricky guy, so he likes to show up to 12 hours after you've finished your cup of coffee. So if you're going to bed at 9 o'clock and you had a cup of coffee at noon, chances are it might disrupt your sleep. So for people to just be aware of what they're consuming in terms of caffeine. Alcohol is another tricky one. So people will say they drink a glass of wine or something to help them feel calm and soothed and fall asleep, but it's a tricky sense of falling asleep. So what happens when we fall asleep? We go through a couple states before we get down to that deep delta sleep. So right above that is theta. And theta is that yummy sleepy feeling that comes over you, is like you feel like you're just about to fall asleep. That's also a lot of the times the feeling that people experience when they're drinking alcohol. The problem is it's not truly your body and your brain getting to a state of rest. So as soon as the alcohol wears off, you're all of a sudden in an alert state and you're waking up and it's disrupting your sleep. So I suggest people give themselves, I mean, if you're going to have a glass of wine with dinner, fine, but maybe not right up to and before you go to bed. You want to give your body some time to metabolize the alcohol before you're laying in bed so you can truly get to a state of rest before you're falling asleep.
Awesome, because coffee and or tea and alcohol, they're both, common things that we reach for, to either for comfort, just the or just the enjoyment and the connection to that feeling of relaxation, when what you're saying is that they don't really relax us at all.
No, it's a false sense of relaxation. So yeah, I think it's better to just, focus more on your evening becoming this preparation for going to bed. So you want a few hours before bed, you want to just start to exist in a very restful state. Lower your lights, lower voices, decrease your screen time. The blue light from the screens is so interruptive to sleep. For kids, it's terrible because a lot of them are on it all day long. So you want to find that time during the day, 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, that you're ceasing your screen time so that your eyes can calm and adjust and your body can be ready to prepare for sleep. So we've done so much to interrupt what was a perfect design, right? So the design of the human body was to be responsive to the light outside, to know when it's time to be awake and when it's time to fall asleep. But we've interrupted it with so many different things. Our computer screens, our cell phones, the lights in our houses. So it's now about how do we recreate that kind of feeling, that normal circadian rhythm, by the activity and the light that we have for ourselves in the evenings.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good point to make, is that we're not doing what we were meant to do in the beginning. We're really not. Yeah. Well, they're all awesome tips, Kelly. Absolutely. And I love the 3 things to be aware of. I think that's awesome. And so much of it is, and again, back to our own awareness, what we understand about ourselves, and add in some of the tips that you're talking about. And, people can get a good night's sleep, sounds like.
Absolutely. And you know what? If somebody has tried all of these things and they're still struggling, then they may need to look for another answer. So there can be other things going on in our bodies in terms of hormones and neurotransmitters and things that we can't see from the surface level or we don't understand. And then you would want to go explore with your doctor, naturopath, and do some testing just to determine what is off for you. But I feel like if you can do these 3 areas, then you're going to know more so, was it my caffeine habit or is there something else going on? And the magical part about all of this is by getting this great sleep, by, bookending your day with activities that are good for your mindset, you're going to feel better overall. You're going to have more energy. And so it's going to have this ripple effect. So I see like sleep is the slippery slope into overall wellness. If we can get you there, that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because if I can get people having a good night's sleep, there's so many more possibilities for them when they have good energy, when they're not relying on caffeine for motivation, when they're not stuck in that cycle of adrenaline and cortisol. and they can actually rest their brains at night and use their brains creatively during the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that really is the underpinning of anything that we move into. Yeah, yeah, the strengthening piece. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, awesome. So I want to be a little conscious of time, of course, but is there anything you want to tell us about the your chapter in the Ultimate book?
I think, first of all, as you said, these volumes for self-healing are so fantastic. This is, I mean, they do exist in the rainbow that you can see behind me. Diana. I have them up there.
It is
But
a rainbow, yeah.
there are amazing tools in these books. And especially now for people who are home and don't have as much access, these books are phenomenal. And so if when you get this volume 4, you're going to get all of these tools, some of which I talked about today, and be able to take yourself through all of the steps to recreate and have a sacred sleep space.
Mm, perfect. Perfect. Well, mine is on the way. Yeah, awesome, Kelly. Okay, so I have one last question for you. And I like to ask it of everybody that comes on the show. Can you tell us one fun or funny thing about you that you don't normally share with anybody?
Oh, sure. I love this.
Anybody
This is
public?
great.
Oh, yay! I don't always get that reaction, so awesome.
Yeah. So my superpower is being able to take any song and recreate the lyrics for the moment. So it's really great when we work with kids and like they're having a tough time and you just take like Yankee Doodle Went to Town and it's about like we're going to go back to class. We're going back to class now, and recreating. But I've been able to do it for some fun events in my life. And it's just something I've always been able to do. That's sort of an interesting life skill. I call myself an adaptive lyricist.
Put that on your resume. I didn't read that in your bio then.
No, I should add that maybe.
You should. Okay, so here's your challenge then. When we get into Find Your Voice, Save Your Life Edition 2, then maybe you can come up with some kind of lyric to kick us off or something like that.
Ooh, I'm in, definitely.
There's your challenge. Okay, Kelly, this has been awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate you being here. And listeners, all Kelly's information is in the show notes, so you know how to find her if you want a good night's sleep. I'm I know I get to record this stuff, so I get to go back and listen and remind myself of all the things that she told us. And for you, I don't know whether you'll absorb it all because she gave us so much, but go back and listen twice if you need to. I'm really happy that you were here today. I want to thank you all for showing up and listening, and know that just by coming and listening today, you have done a little bit of DIY ass kicking. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. If you like today's podcast, hit subscribe at the bottom on your way out, and come find me at cravemorelife.com for even more DIY ass kicking.